Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan.
I'm James.
And I'm Callum.
And tonight we are talking all about Netflix's new original film, In the Shadow of the Moon.
Yeah, so first off, major spoiler warning, because no point in beating around the bush with this one, I think. It's on Netflix, so if you want to watch it, it's pretty easily available. But otherwise, we're going to go full into discussion, So major spoiler warning for the new Netflix film, In the Shadow of the Moon. Where shall we begin?
Time travel.
Yeah, so this film is essentially about the basic premise is about a time-traveling serial killer.
Yeah, it's a Philadelphia cop, beat cop in the 1988, Thomas Lockhart.
Which is the worst character name.
It's the generic hero
It reminds
name.
me. I feel like it should be in a 90s era Clive Barker novel.
Yeah, it's a good hero, hero name. It's just classic. At least he's not John. I can't in anything where the main character's name's John now. I'm like, come on, man. I know there are still people named John, but come on.
It's like default.
Yeah, exactly. Default hero name was Blast Hard Cheese. So yeah, it's Boyd Holbrook plays Thomas Lockhart, who's like a beat cop in the late 1980s in Philly.
Boyd Holbrook's a much cooler name.
Philly.
They should have used his real name.
What name?
Boyd Holbrook, his real name.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good hero name.
That's a good hero name.
Yeah. Yeah, and he kind of is investigating a series of murders that are happening around the city.
He wants to make detective.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to prove himself.
He's trying to hustle the investigation.
Yeah. He tracks down the killer and fights with her.
Kung Fu style.
Yeah.
He pushes her into a train and she dies.
She dies.
He doesn't push her, he shoots her in the leg and then she falls.
Yeah.
And she kind of looks like Billy Zane. I just want to get that out of the way.
Not really.
Not really. Face blindness continues.
Yeah. Just because she got a shaved head.
No. And the eyes. And the eyes.
But yeah, and then 9 years later, he's made detective, and the killings start again.
Gosh.
And he's like,
copycat.
Yeah.
No, it's the same.
And they find out it's not a copycat, it's the same woman. But it's like, she can't be the same because she did. But it's like, no, she's the same. It's like there's some sort of conspiracy going on, some sort of sci-fi mumbo jumbo.
And he gets a bit obsessed with it.
And he becomes obsessed with the case and
it destroys his life.
She escapes again, and he becomes so consumed with trying to find her that 9 years later, when she emerges, his life is ruined. He's basically living out of his car, spends all of his time trying to track her down and stop her from killing people. And then basically tracks her, does he lose her the third time?
Can't remember.
Yeah.
He does?
Yeah, I think he loses her the third time, and then
she just gets away.
Yeah.
And so 9 years later, he's waiting.
Yeah, now he knows where
he knows where to
comes in and out. Yeah. And he knows now that she's a time traveler who's instead of going forward, she's going backwards. So when she died, she actually died, but that in her timeline, exactly. So he's going forward and she's going backwards. And he's trying to catch up with her first killing, which in his timeline, he's getting older, and she's just hasn't even started killing
It's like this reverse.
In his mind, the first killing is in 1988. In her mind, her first killing would be in 20, whatever the hell it is.
2015. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And then 2015, he's older now, his life's ruined, he's obsessed with her, he's waiting for her, and then he finds out that it's like, no, you actually sent me from the future. I'm your granddaughter. There's a terrorist attack in the future, which we have to prevent by going back and killing all these people to prevent the attackers.
The terrorism
radicalizing.
Rooted out of
it's homegrown terror, basically.
Yeah, it's like a home
neo-Nazi
militia.
Terror.
Yeah,
because it says in the manifesto, you see it's like the white race
superior,
and stuff.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So now they've kind of set that up. Let's rewind it back. I really like this movie overall. I think for the whole experience, I was actually engaged in the mystery. I felt like it's like a good episode of X-Files.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of like, Mulder's driving around and he's getting super obsessed with things and he's just like, Yeah. And the mystery goes to the end of the episode and then you find out at the end of the episode what's happening. It's just a good kind of...
I think I can agree with that.
Like the mystery, It's predictable in a lot of parts, but even then, I was kind of like still interested to see where it was going. I was like, and I think I know what's happening, but I want to see what happens next, kind of thing.
I'm not meaning to slag Netflix off, but it's pretty good for a recent Netflix original film. Like, there's a lot of Netflix original movies. Yeah. Some of them are really good.
It's a lot better than most of their Netflix original films that we've seen recently. It's not, I mean, it has a lot of problems, but it's a lot better. Like, I think it looks nice most of the time. Sometimes it looks really cheap.
I think it looked the best when it was in the 80s.
Yeah, when they're in the 80s and they're in the city,
that's just the fake way
pretty cool.
Yeah, for me, I love that.
I think once they start going into more rural areas and like more modern area, it just starts to look cheaper and cheaper.
I think I enjoyed over the whole course of the movie. I think I enjoyed the first like half an hour. This 1988 section.
The first half an hour is the best, and then the first like half of the movie's probably much better than the second half of the movie. But like up until the end, like I was engaged the whole time. Like I thought it was a really good mystery, and like I like the cast. I like all the cast members. I love Bokeem Woodbine, who plays his partner.
Another good hero name.
Yeah, that's a good hero name. Damn.
Maddox is okay.
Yeah, Mannix is a good hero name. And like Michael C. Hall's in it. Dexter.
Average hero name.
Yeah.
It's not Michael C. Power.
Michael C. Steele.
Yeah, that's a bit better.
But yeah, like it's like I like the cast, I like the mystery. Like I was kind of invested the whole time.
Can I have a whinge?
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I really didn't like was this film employs the old 50s version of time travel. So the old original version of time travel is you go back in time. You fix the problem, and then everything magically fixes itself. Like in Harry Potter when they fix the glasses, like you know what I mean? It's like that. Like
like a time reverses and you see things fixing themselves. Yeah,
that's like the 50s era cringe. I hate that.
I don't mind it. It's just the way it's implemented right at the end of the movie makes zero sense if you're actually thinking about how the time travel works.
Yeah. Like the more better version of time travel, more better.
more better. The more better.
I have a writing degree, not a speaking degree, as Callum says.
Yeah, the better version of time travel is like the version where there's split realities. So you go to, let's just say you go back in time. Yeah. You don't actually go back in your time. You go back to a divergent reality.
Yeah, as soon as you change something, the timeline you came back from still exists, but now there's an alternate...
You're in a different version.
Which makes more sense because if you could never go back in time in the first place because you changed something where you never had to go back in time, which is what this movie does, where they fix the future to the point where the girl never would have to come back in time.
That's right, the paradox.
Yeah. Which, like, there are a lot of movies that have this paradox. Yeah. It's not the biggest problem the movie has.
It just makes me cringe.
I just feel like it's kind of a lazy way.
Also, the whole thing about the moon and the gravity. I'm like, come on, man! Don't try and explain it with pseudo bullcrap.
There's another movie that did this. Oh, I forget what it's called, but it's more practical and based in reality, in where there can only Dark.
Dark.
The Netflix show Dark.
Yeah.
They can only time travel is 8 or 9 years.
Gosh, I can't remember. I think it's actually it's 12.
12 years. They can only travel in jumps of 12 years because every 12 years...
Back and forth.
Back and forth. They can travel anywhere you like in 12-year gaps. Because the only time that we're sitting here right now... in space, as we're hurtling around millions of miles an hour...
you have to be in the same spot in space.
Because if I time travelled into a year from now...
You'd be in space.
I'll be in space.
That's interesting. See, that's
so the way Dark handles time travel is they can only jump in exact 12-year gaps because then...
So they come out at the exact same spot.
They come out in the exact same spot in the universe.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But see, Dark's an intelligent show. Like, that's a... we could do a whole episode. And one day we'll do an epic on Dark.
Yeah.
And
when Dark finishes, because I haven't started yet, because they said season 3 is going to be the last one.
It's a trilogy,
right?
that's
so
right.
when season 3, I'll binge the whole thing and then we'll do an episode on it. But
because that's really smart.
So that's probably the problem. Even though I like the premise of In the Shadow of the Moon, the way they deal with time travel is kind of just lazy, and it's just kind of like
I feel like they should have explained it at all.
Shouldn't have.
No.
Yeah,
leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a technology. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's magic. Don't explain it. She's a time traveler. You know what I mean? Like, I would much prefer it if there was just more mystery to it. It was like... See, I would have flipped the perspective. I would have made this more like a 12 Monkeys movie, where you have the woman who has to kill a whole bunch of people for whatever reason, but she has to do it while evading the police in a set amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the way they did
Actually, that brings up a good point. She probably should have been the main character.
Yes. I feel like it's a very different movie with the detective as the main character.
Yeah.
I feel like that's fine for a television show.
Yeah.
Weaker for a film.
Yeah, I think that's where one of the problems
Also,
is.
the film's not smart enough. It's not well written enough to carry that perspective.
One of the problems with this film is when you get to the end and everything's revealed, it's kind of like, well, now those ideas need to be explored.
That's right.
You can't just throw them in at the end and then credits roll. Those ideas could have been explored if the girl was the main character. She's never named in the movie, but is she? She's credited as Raya.
I don't think she ever says
I don't think
her
they
name.
ever say her name.
Oh.
But and I guess that's another problem. Is like she's just like
She's a weapon.
she's a Terminator,
Yeah.
but like
She's more of a
not
weapon,
as-
less of a character.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's not emotionless. She's not. She's not a cold machine. But it's like she's the Terminator, and she's coming back, and we've got the human character trying to fight her. Kind of thing. Whereas if you actually wanted to explore the political ideas that the end of the movie presents.
You need to flip that perspective.
You have to flip the perspective, or you have to have the more things about the movie be about like the creation of white supremacy.
So the philosophical underpinnings of this film deal with kind of contemporary political issues. It's got to do with the hard right conservative movement, the white race, the rise of neo-Nazis, the Make America Great Again kind of stuff. So the problem is the film's philosophical message is better to stamp out these at the point at this point in time. Nothing at the point in time in which you see the detective. No crimes have actually been committed.
So we should say that for the movie's like almost 2 hours long. For almost the entire 2 hours, Lockhart, trying to solve these murders of innocent people. There's the people haven't committed any crimes.
That's right.
I mean, they might have committed crimes.
It's the Minority Report thing,
Yeah. So it's like they haven't committed crimes. He's trying to... You think the girl is the bad guy going back and killing all these people, but she keeps telling him, no, there's a purpose to this. Yeah. And right at the end of the movie, you find out the reason she's gone back in time to kill these specific people is because they will give rise
to the Second Civil War.
To the Second Civil War, which is
millions of people die.
Like apocalyptic event in America's history, and they basically these ordinary people going about their lives, they basically enabled the attackers in 2024 to start the new Civil War when these white supremacist, homegrown domestic terrorists blow up a truck in downtown. And Lockhart finds out that it's his granddaughter, and that he sort of gave her the mission to go back to do this, to stamp out this terrorism. But as I was saying, for the 2 hours of the movie, they didn't explore that idea. They didn't explore other than a Black Lives Matter protest going on in the 90s. Not a Black Lives Matter, but you know what I mean.
Civil rights
protest, I should say, going on in the 90s. They never mention anything to do with this at all, and then they drop this bombshell at the end of the movie, and then credits roll.
So they didn't do any of the groundwork. So that's the notions presented are fine. But if you're going to have that discussion, that needs to be the center point of the film. Right. You need to be there needs to be more of a dialogue between Lockhart and Rhea. There needs to be a conversation of him trying to say, no, these people are innocent. How can you do this? She needs to have a counterpoint. Exactly. It needs to be an ongoing theme.
Exactly.
You can't just say, because I'm pretty sure it works out like this. She's like, oh no, these people are going to commit crimes. And he's like, okay.
Yeah. This is one of the problems with the movie. When he does catch up to her, she's like, look, I'm doing this for a reason, but I can't tell you now because, I'm too busy, or, you'll try to stop me even more or something. And then she runs away or whatever. And I'm like, I hate when writers do that, where they do the whole no time to explain, because they can't, it's just an easy way for them to be like, there's a simple misunderstanding that the whole movie revolves around. Whereas if they actually met at gunpoint and she's like, look, there's a terrorist attack that's going to happen.
I'm trying to stop it.
And if he doesn't believe her, that's one thing.
If she had proof too. If she's like, look, I come from the future. Here's my proof of the terrorist attacks.
Exactly.
Do you know? But I feel like there's a quote in the film which I kind of didn't. It came again. I understand that there's a quote here that says some thoughts are meant to be buried, which would be fine in a better film. I feel like the way it presents it is very fascistic.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The whole if you could go back and kill Hitler, would you? That's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
If you're going to make the whole movie about that idea and explore the implications of that, the movie doesn't do that. It just drops that question right at the end.
Yeah.
When the whole 2 hours of the movie have just been like a murder mystery.
That's right.
With no underlying...
So the thing I would say is like... Some thoughts are meant to be buried implies a forbidden knowledge, right? It's like here's something that we don't want people to know.
Yeah.
The quote should have been something like some thoughts are meant to be
discussed vigorously.
Destroyed, right? Like some thoughts are meant to be kind of like shown to the light and then torn down.
Some thoughts were never meant to be even like I don't know how to put this.
There's a better quote there.
I don't know how to put this eloquently, but some thoughts should never exist.
Yeah, like they should have...
Hate should never have to exist in someone's mind.
That thought, when uttered, should immediately have been counteracted to such a degree that it was like, oh, of course that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
What am I... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these people, these neo-Nazis...
That's another thing is maybe he should have found out her motive in the middle of the film and then been like, look, I don't agree with the terrorists. I don't agree with the white supremacists. But the idea you're presenting is very fascistic and kind of you're doing what they would do by trying to stamp out.
To stop killers, you're killing pretty much not indiscriminately because she has a list.
Yeah.
But as far as he's concerned, it's indiscriminate.
Exactly.
He's got all these like bus drivers.
So if he was like, fighting
chefs.
against her, but not because he didn't like her, her like goal, but because the way she was going about it kind of thing. And then maybe for her to say, well, you're the one who gave me the idea. And then he's like, well, then you should kill me because... And then she's like, well, no, that proves my point. If I kill you, you never gave me the idea, which is what we're trying to do here. See, this is a much more interesting movie we're making here.
Sounds like a Nolan movie.
Just by talking about it. No, man, when Tenet comes out with all the weird time travel shit.
No, I just feel like they did not earn the philosophical ideas that they're trying to use.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like Minority Report presents it in a more interesting, but that's based on Philip K. Dick work, and he was a genius.
Yeah. And I don't really like that movie because the start of the movie is really good and the end of the movie is really good, but the middle of the movie is absolute trash because it's just like a chase movie.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with the idea of the movie. Only the start and the end have the idea in it. Yeah. Which is the thing with this movie is like the movie's good going. It's a chase movie. But at the end, it's about the idea, but doesn't explore that idea.
That's right.
And so the rest of the movie becomes, even though I really enjoyed it, and I might even watch it again, like
I need to read the book.
Pointless.
I never read the book.
Minority Report. Yeah. Was it a book or a short story?
Either way, I
think it was a short story, so you could probably just read it online.
But yeah, no, I feel like what should have happened is like he should have put forward the argument, yes, they commit a crime, but who are you to decide... Like, at what point does someone become a criminal?
Yeah, also, we should... See, this is another question, is she's going back to it to kill the people who gave the attackers the ideas...
Even if, for example, they're the people who do the bombings, like, whatever. Like,
so they're the future... whatever organization she belongs to, their idea is you can't just go back in time... Terminator style and kill John Connor. You have to kill the idea of...
That's right.
Yeah, so you can't just kill the white supremacists who did the attack before they did the attack. You have to go back further and kill the people who gave them the ideas, who raised them to be this way.
God forbid you go back and you tell the police about it.
Exactly. Which it's kind of like... One, you're going back and you're killing innocent people, at least to a certain degree, or at least they haven't done anything yet. But on the other hand, it's like, well, they're not indiscriminately killing just white supremacists. They're killing people who are directly tied to the attackers who will one day attack. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's a message I would tend to agree with if it wasn't coming from such a blunt place, and if it wasn't almost fascistic idea that perhaps right-wing people would be on board with, almost if it was from their perspective. Do you know what I mean?
I actually put in the notes.
It's a violent right-wing idea done from the left wing.
I actually put in my notes. Neo-Nazis causing the Second Civil War may be too close to home for some people. Low scores from critics.
Exactly. That's another thing. Is anytime there's anything political in a movie, people are going to trash it. And this,
I think that's the one thing about this movie. It's a very right-wing idea, showed from a left-wing perspective.
You know what would have been even cooler?
As you just said.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
If she goes back in time, infiltrates the terrorist cell, and either finds their plans or tries to sway the leaders.
That's what
it's like Thriller.
That's what I wanted to talk about, is the idea of going back. It's the kill Hitler idea.
Yeah.
The idea of going back in time and killing the killers or killing the people who create the killers.
There'll just be another head.
Yeah, that's fascistic. That's violence breeds violence.
You just go back in time and you have a word to the art school.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. One of the problems we're seeing now with like white supremacist violence and neo-Nazi movements and alt-right movements is that these movements, you can't just go out and shoot all these people because that's what they want. That's what they fear. That's why they're collecting guns. That's why they make threats.
Gives them a reason to strike back.
What you have to do is start, a
conversation,
and you have to start with education.
That's right.
You have to start with I don't know what the word is, but like interaction and outreach. You need to have
a broader community base.
Exactly. You have to, and just traveling around and people, interacting more, black and white people mixing
it happens
communally, and just like slowly, this is the problem. We're on a ticking time bomb of something bad's going to happen. The world's literally on fire. Yeah. We need to address that. Another civil war might actually happen, maybe not, but Trump literally
he quoted some guy who was like, "Oh, if Trump's impeached, there's going to be another civil war."
Exactly. So it's like it's not an impossible situation right now. Right. So we're on a ticking time bomb here. But also, you can't fix this stuff overnight. You can't just click your fingers and be like, well, if we killed some of these people, they'll fix the problem. So what we have to do is start now and say, well, the education, we have to start educating them now and so on and so on. We have to outreach to them now. So the movie should have been like, well, we don't have the time to do that. Let's go back in time, see where the root of the problem is, and start fixing those things back in time. So now we're at this point, the problem's already fixed. That's a much more interesting, much more nuanced.
De-radicalization.
If you watch
exactly. But de-radicalization 30 years ago, that the MAGA stuff never happened.
That's right. Yeah. And you get to see her grow as a character across the 9 years or so.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like the problem with the movie is that the idea is,
and it's like white superiority, right? It's like she's going back in time to stop these terrorists. I hate to break it to you, there's still going to be neo-Nazis. You know what I mean? Exactly. You kill one guy who had one cell.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Oh, well, no, the idea is she's going back to pivotal moments.
She's
prevented the idea to even get to the white supremacists in the first place.
No, but like she's killing one cell who had one manifesto.
No, but the movie's only pretty much centered in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we can just assume that this cell starts in Philly.
My point is, the quote is, you have to kill the idea. Yeah. But that idea, white supremacy, that runs
exactly,
deep.
That goes. And that's another problem with the movie is, like with a lot of movies that deal with racism, they never actually address the systematic problem. In movies, there's always like a racist bad guy who gets taken down at the end and then everything's fine. But no one actually talks about, well, there's this whole systematic problem, government, police, school system, where that's where the racism, exactly, it's social, socioeconomic, like
one of the targets should have been a police officer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one of the guys should have been someone he knows. Yeah. What if the uncle was on the list?
Yeah. That's true. Michael C. Hall's character should have been on the list, and then he's like arguing with her. I'm like, no, he's your great granduncle or whatever, and like, no, he's my friend. No, he took care of me, and she's like, no, he's not a racist lynch, a hillbilly lynching.
He's like the David Duke type, the suits.
His department was problematic in its structure,
and he knew, and he didn't do anything.
Oppression of minorities. He knew, and exactly. But then it's like, well, you bring up the question of like killing him. That's a fascistic kind of troubling thing.
Like I was saying before, it's like at this point in time they haven't committed a crime.
Yeah,
right. I'm like, you need to maybe. I don't know. It's like I feel like it's a problem.
I feel like the idea is so complex that if they really wanted to explore it, they had to do a series or write a book.
Or the whole movie should have been that question. is it correct to do this?
Exactly.
Like, instead, like, don't worry, you can have action parts.
Yeah.
But the movie should have been a drama thriller.
Yeah.
Her coming to terms of murdering someone who's technically innocent.
Exactly.
Like the psychological toll. Like maybe she kills someone. She's like, my God, what
Yeah.
if I could have handled this in a different way?
Yeah.
But then the people who are handling her are like, no, you got to put some bullets in some people.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, what you say that, but I think one of the problems with the movie is the futuristic weapon she uses is completely unnecessary and doesn't need to be in the movie.
She would have got away with it.
Yeah.
If she just used normal weapons.
I feel like the only reason it's there is so that the detective can.
Oh my God, she's from the future.
Yeah, it's like link the cases, because otherwise it just would have been a bunch of random murders. Yeah,
so stupid.
I guess that's where the X-Files thing comes in. Where what's the alien bounty hunter?
What's this
the
liquid?
ice pick?
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like, why does he need that? He just could use a gun.
They're using black oil.
Yeah,
or whatever they called it.
It's like the only reason Mulder and Scully can link these cases is because there's always a sludge left of the victim. If he just shot them, it would have just been a random murder that would have gone to the local PD, and Mulder and Scully would have never known about it. But yeah, like that's a dumb thing. But this movie needed to be so much more complex and nuanced and subtle, just a lot subtler. And instead, it's a good like mystery thriller sci-fi, and then it ends with a huge bombshell of a message where it's kind of like, I kind of agree with that, but no, I don't, kind of thing.
Like I said, like a smarter director, a better script.
Yeah.
Yes,
it just needs a better.
They could present a better argument for that.
It needed a better script from the beginning, because the director Jim Mickle, like his movies are really cool, like Stake Land and Cold in July. Like those are really cool, like kind of 80s style, like thrillers, action, sci-fi kind of things going on with cool synth music and stuff. And this movie had that as well. But the script was so poor that it kind of let down. And also, we have to talk about the Netflix problem of, even though this is better than Netflix's most of their stuff, there's just, I don't know if it's like, I don't know how it happens, but these movies start to feel the same. Mm-hmm. Netflix movies, where they kind of start to look the same, like not cheap, but just a little bit cheap. Yeah. And it's like the scripts are not the worst, but just like need lots of work. And it's kind of like, are they targeting movies that won't do well cinematically, so they release them on the streaming service?
Because it's cheaper, maybe?
Yeah, or are they... Because I was under the impression they go to these filmmakers and they say, we'll give you creative control, we give you money if you give us your new movie, and then that way we can get more film fans to subscribe to our service. But also what they do is they just go around buying movies that have already been made. So it's like, I'm going to assume, I don't know if this is true.
I think the difference is when we read a headline saying X person has inked in a deal with Netflix, that means they're getting complete control.
So there's two different things going on here. There's the movies they just go around and buy up for that have already been made and that Netflix hasn't had any hand in. So they just go and they're like, well, that movie looks interesting, we'll just buy that for our service to get more subscribers. Whether the movie's good or bad doesn't matter. We just need to get more content. And that's why a lot of movies, there's a lot of crappy horror movies and stuff like they just throw out there on their service. It's because these movies are trying to sell to a distributor, and Netflix comes along, makes the highest bid, grabs it up and throws it on the service. It might not be that good, but it's like the movie was never going to be that good anyway because it's just already like that. Yeah. So a distributor, when Netflix came knocking, the makers of the film were like, yeah, sure. Then there's Netflix goes to a filmmaker and says, we'll give you all the money, do what you want, we'll let you...
Was that the case with the Meyerowitz stories?
I'm not sure.
Actually, probably not, because I know he makes his films for theaters and then Netflix like gobbled him up.
Maybe, yeah. He might have made that film and then they might have bought it later. So then there's another question of like, maybe the films that are made with no Netflix, interaction until they distribute it, is that better or worse?
It's a grab bag.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're grabbing everything, good and bad. Then there's the Netflix movies where it's like, here's the money, we'll actually make the film with you, and then we'll distribute it afterwards.
Most of them are pretty decent.
Now, I feel like most of them are decent. I feel like Okja was like that.
Okja, Beast of No Nation?
Yes, and I think The Irishman is like that.
The
What was that
Irishman
one
is
with
most
Will
definitely
Smith?
like that because
Yeah.
he couldn't get it made before Netflix.
Yeah.
But then there are
What was
movies.
the one with Will Smith where he with the fairies and all
yeah,
that?
Bright was like that.
Oh, Bright, yeah. So and then, but Mute was like that, right?
Mute was
So-
like that.
so
But
here's
that
the
was
thing.
complete creative
Yeah,
vision.
yeah, exactly. So here's the thing: is giving the creator the full creative control and giving them the money and just saying go nuts. That's dangerous because it could end up really good or really, really bad, you know. But then I think there's a third thing going on where they're making movies and saying, I feel like, I don't know, because I was under the impression that when they made movies in-house, they gave full creative control. But I feel like there might be a third thing going on where there might be, because Netflix's whole thing is about algorithms and getting more subscribers,
Yeah.
there might be...
There might be some cookie cutter movies.
Yeah, there might be some script interference.
Which I can understand. If you're just a filmmaker
Yeah.
who wants to get a film made,
But
and
it's
you
like-
get told,
yeah.
we need X, Y,
But
and
the
Z.
whole thing about Netflix, we thought, was they give full creative control.
That's
they
right,
let things.
yeah.
But it seems like they're just becoming another studio, which is understandable, like you said. But also, so I want to know. I want to be a fly on the wall of this movie. Of like, because I assume it was written way before Netflix was even involved. Then the filmmaker came on board. Then Netflix came on board. And then they're like, yeah, we'll give them money and make it. Did they make any suggestions for the script? I don't know. But, yeah, like, I want to know more of how Netflix movies are made. Because at first, we were just like, yeah, we'll take the good and the bad. But now, I'm kind of like...
Are you making the bad?
Yeah, are you the ones making them bad? Even though you buy a lot of them pre-bad, pre-made bad, like, are you making... the ones you do make in-house, are you making those bad? Or are the filmmakers given too much control to the point where they're not as good? Because this movie is not as good as Jim Mickle's other films, you know? Mute was way worse than all of Duncan Jones's other films, even Warcraft, I'd argue.
Oh, Warcraft was a solid film.
Yeah, I'm better than Mute anyway. You know, so it's like,
I like
what's the thing that goes off in a filmmaker's mind? Is it the thing of they're given too much creative control and too much freedom and too much money, and all of a sudden they can't make a good movie anymore because they don't know they don't have any restrictions,
They freeze up.
they don't have any hurdles to overcome? Or is it that Netflix is giving the illusion of freedom when in reality making crappy, like, algorithm tested movies, and then that's why the movies are almost always worse than the filmmaker's previous films?
Yeah.
I want to know what this movie is, because I'm confused.
Yeah, look, I haven't seen any of the guy's previous work.
Yeah.
But if it's substandard compared to his other works, I feel like it's a safe assumption his scripts got fiddled with.
Yeah, either that or
has he done sci-fi before, like proper sci-fi?
Stakeland was like a vampire post-apocalyptic movie. But see, like, his other movies are like indie movies, right? So this movie is, it's maybe a slightly bigger movie, maybe a little bit of more budget, but like...
It could be a Ryan Johnson situation.
Yeah, I think it's just him giving full creative control and all the money. It's like maybe he
maybe he did full Ryan Johnson and just pooped his pants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's just like, he didn't know what to do with all the stuff. So, but it's like, but it's not even that bad. Like, if it was terrible, then you'd be like, oh well, he didn't know what to do with the bigger budget and the bigger movie. But it's not that bad. So it's kind of like, what else is going on?
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just confused as to the
I think that
behind the scenes.
the simple answer is probably just not that good a film. Like, I reckon, maybe he tried something new and it just didn't work out.
I think, like, I want to see, because I want to test this theory that I've been rambling on about. I want to see Duncan Jones's next film. I want to see Jim Mickle's next film. I want to see all the guys who have made Netflix movies that weren't that good. I want to see when they make a new movie, perhaps not under Netflix, will it be good? Will it be as good as their older movies? Or is it just they're becoming bad filmmakers and that's why they're bad? Or is it Netflix is the problem?
Well, that's an interesting topic because Stranger Things got renewed for season 4 today. Officially.
Yeah, there was a teaser, yeah.
And the Duffer Brothers inked a $100 million deal with Netflix.
Yeah, because they're
the money machine. Yeah, but
big.
it's going to be interesting to see what they do outside of Stranger Things for Netflix. Will that be bad?
Look, I feel like I like
No.
Stranger Things, but I feel like the Duffer Brothers might be a one-trick pony.
That's going to be interesting. That's
So,
what I mean.
Yeah,
It's
so
like,
we'll have to see what they do
Like-
outside of Stranger Things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might be like a situation like this where Jim Mickle makes really cool indie films and then Netflix comes and says, oh, we'll give you the money to make this new film. And then he shits the bed. And it's like maybe his next film will be more smaller, more restrictive with another studio.
Yeah.
And he might get back on track. Or it might be terrible and it's like, well, maybe Netflix wasn't the problem. Maybe he just doesn't know how to handle, I don't know. I really want to know, but we might never know.
Yeah.
It's really...
we
I
take
don't
the
know.
good with the bad.
Yeah.
And there's a few kind of good-looking Netflix movies coming out soon. So hopefully we'll get some
Yeah.
decent stuff coming in through.
Wounds looks interesting.
Yeah.
The Irishman looks interesting. Have you ever heard of this Scorsese guy?
No, he must be an indie director.
Yeah, must
See,
be.
it must be like a...
Poor guy couldn't get anything made.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder why he's on Netflix if he... hopefully he's good. But yeah, like, In the Shadow of the Moon, watching it, I really liked it.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
was
was
engaged.
halfway through and I was going to message you guys and go, I think this movie's really good.
A good thing you didn't.
Yeah.
Because the first
but it's
half's
like,
the best
yeah,
half.
exactly. But the movie's still engaging
Yeah.
the whole way through.
It's
just-
entertaining.
it drops a bombshell that it can't...
Yeah, it spends too much time. It's got too much action, and usually I say movies don't have enough.
Yeah.
But I think it has too much action and not enough conversation.
Yeah, like I really like I like the dirt bike chase, but I was kind of like at this point in the movie, maybe we need to get to the like
Philosophical.
the philosophical discussions and the sci-fi jargon and all that stuff. So like I think one of the problems I have with the movie is the scientist guy.
Rao.
Yeah, and he like just pops out of nowhere
Yeah.
and then disappears.
Yeah,
like
it's
literally
so
like he
silly.
disappears. And then he comes at the end and he's like just spouting all this nonsense about time
Yeah.
travel and how he's the one who invents the technology that she's using to prevent the attack and yada yada. I'm like, he should have been a more fleshed out character and he should have been maybe trying to stop Lockhart from, finding her or whatever, and they could have had this philosophical discussions and
Yeah, that could have been the basis for the conversation between So you have the policeman who's like, no, she's committing crimes. I have to
Exactly.
stop her.
Yeah.
You have her. She's like, no, I have to kill these people.
Yeah.
And you have him as the man who's in the middle,
The scientist,
trying to pass all of this
Yeah.
information.
exactly, and trying to like scientifically go through maybe perhaps the
ramifications of what she's actually doing.
And then, because Lockhart is a police officer, so he technically represents the system, at least,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
movie.
metaphorically, yeah.
So, he should have been perhaps the one who was, very, they say, you're part of the problem, and then he's like, no, not all cops are bad, and it's like, well, that's just an excuse for systematic racism, and there needs to be more discussion and exploration, and the movie just kind of... this movie would have been so much better. Like, I hate it. I fucking hate it when people say, I don't want politics in my movie, and this movie is really bad because it's politics. Like, fuck you, grow up. And a lot of negative reviews of the movie have been because, this political message is wrong, yada, yada.
The political
Now,
message is
and I
only
hate-
unpalatable because it's poorly done.
As we've discussed, the political message is very problematic.
And but at the same time, the people that say I don't want politics in my movies, I'm sorry, you're probably the problem.
Are often part of the problem. Are often the reason why these movies need to be made.
But people who complain about politics in movies don't understand that politics is pretty much built into all art forms.
And that's the thing is...
frankly, this is going to sound pretentious, even sculpture at a basic level, because politics is part of culture, part of identity.
Yeah, I think politics, especially in this moment in time, it needs to be part of the overall pop culture discussion of, it has to be in people's minds. And people who don't want it in their minds are often part of the problem, who are just like, everything's fine.
Art's supposed to be challenging.
Exactly.
If you find this movie
Confronting,
unpalatable because you think that maybe you just believe that maybe murder shouldn't be like Minority Report, murder shouldn't be indiscriminate, that's fine. But you should have to.
Yeah.
You should, if you don't agree with the messages in this film, you need to have a coherent way of explaining why. You can't just be like, but my feels.
As much as I fucking hate people saying, I hate when my movies get politics, this movie would be so much better if the message at the end was less political. just because the rest of the movie doesn't deal with the politics.
That's right.
And therefore, the end of the movie shouldn't be political because they haven't done the groundwork. They haven't explored the idea. So the reason I liked the movie up until a certain point, for almost 2 hours, I was really engaged with the mystery. Even though I kind of knew halfway through where the whole, the terrorist attack was going to be homegrown white supremacist terrorists, but I knew, I felt like I liked it because it was straightforward kind of thriller, kind of chase movie, kind of mystery. And so the end should have been much more straightforward to match the rest of the movie.
The pace,
Yeah, because the end of the movie, while interesting, is never explored throughout the journey of the movie. And so, therefore, the end of the movie should have just been, she's a killer or something.
Yeah, like doesn't
or
really.
she's killing people who killed her mum, and
a revenge story might have been better.
I mean, that's generic, and that still would have made the movie bad. But it's like that would have made more sense.
You know, I can't really. You could do the dark thing, and you could have it at least with the first season. It's just a serial killer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a bad dude.
Yeah.
Or bad lady.
Yeah.
Doing bad things. You could the time traveling serial killer concept has enough meat on its bones that you don't need to insert too many other concepts to go along with it. I think it should.
Exactly.
But that's not what this movie presents.
Because,
not in a fleshed out way.
Yeah, because the movie's so straightforward going throughout it, the ending needs to make the rest of the movie equally make sense, Whereas the ending of the movie, the way it is, with the political message, is just kind of like, well, all of that 2 hours was wasted because you didn't set any of that up.
That's
you didn't
right.
explore any of that. So it should have just been a straightforward thing where even though she maybe might be a quote-unquote good guy because she's getting revenge or whatever.
Chaotic good.
Yeah, exactly.
Really soured it for me. I was
that's another thing is the ending would have been better if it was more straightforward, and then he has to make a choice of whether to let her go or to let her... But then he's already killed her at the start anyway, so really none of this matters.
Because they have that old time travel method. It's like...
Exactly.
You can't kill... If I'd failed, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, then why make the film?
Yeah, and that's another thing is the time travel is kind of lazy where she's like, no, it only works one way. I can only go backwards, and then if you killed me, then I'm dead. But then she kills everyone, and then the terrorist attack never happens, and therefore she never would have had to go back in time, but they don't address that at all.
No. That entire timeline's erased.
I feel like this movie would have been really good. I think I said this halfway through this show where I said this movie would have been good if he kind of learns her motive halfway through the movie and then has to deal with that. But also I think this movie would have been so cool if at a certain point he kind of figures out that he's the one who sent her back. And then you get like a montage of him like raising her, training her with guns, this, that, and the other. But what this movie does, it commits the cardinal sin, which I think I talked about with Ad Astra, narration. If you're not Scorsese, don't fucking put narration in your movie. Unless you're going for a very specific like film noir thing and you're making a joke or something. But like most of the time, 99% of the time, if you got narration in a movie, fucking cut it out. Do it through dialogue or visuals. Show, don't tell. And that's the cardinal sin that this movie commits at the very end, where the whole movie has gone without any narration, but to explain the woman's motive, she then with images of her as a baby and Lockhart like cradling her and the city, the damage of the city, the attack reversing. Over that, you hear a narration of like, and he taught me the things I needed to know, and I went back in time, and that's, this. And I was like, no, fuck, like, show this.
Yeah.
Show a montage of him raising, being a grandfather, giving her ice cream, training her to be a fighter, then sending her back, and then, like, being devastated because he knows he's the one to kill her, but also knowing that he's the one who prevents the attack. Much more interesting, much more layered, much more emotional.
They could throw this through the whole movie too by like having some sort of time travel paradox thing going on where wherever he sees the killer, he gets like a headache and he sees like...
Oh, that's a bit cheesy.
That's a bit cheesy?
Yeah, I think that's a bit much.
No?
But like it definitely like... They needed to like lay the groundwork throughout the movies. Like when he sees her, maybe he recognizes her. Or,
just a little mozzarella?
A little mozzarella.
Just to bind it all together?
Yeah. But yeah, like, it's just...
for me,
it lacks
disappointing.
it lacks nuance. Like
Yeah.
the end of the movie is just so ham-fisted that it kind of ripples back throughout the movie.
It goes back in time.
Yeah, it's kind of, the movie does to itself what Rio Araya is doing to the people,
victims,
the victims. Like, it goes back and it like kills itself through time. It's like, oh, I'm really enjoying this movie. This movie's really engaging, and then it ends, and then you're like,
Oh, the movie's pointless.
you know, you're walking backwards. You rewind the movie and you watch it backwards, and you're like, well, none of that had to happen. None of that made sense. None of that added up. Oh man, it's disappointing. One thing, like we kind of hinted this as well, but like the whole like thought crime, like if you're going to kill someone if they haven't done anything yet, it's like that's troubling. The alt-right people who will condemn this movie are often the ones who would be up for this if Trump suggested it or something.
Oh,
No,
there was a guy on Twitter.
Yeah.
There was something with Trump tweeted something about standing with the president, and some guy tweeted, and he had like the display picture was like, the eagle and a gun or whatever, and he's like, I'll stand with you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
I'm like, that guy. Yeah. Was like, he's just waiting for it.
So this is the thing, is like there is a deeply ingrained problem in America especially, but it's happening here and it's happening around the world right now, where we're seeing a large sway to the right, and it's very concerning. And so that needs to be addressed, and that needs to be, political movies have always been a thing and will continue to be a thing, and now more than ever need to be a thing and need to be addressed. But yeah, the way the movie does it is just so ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And it does it in a way, like we said before, where it's like right-wing people would be for this movie if it was about going back and killing left-wing...
the socialists who caused America to go bankrupt because they gave everyone too much health care.
Yeah, it's like, we went back and we killed, we killed all we killed all the climate protesters. What if we killed all the climate protesters? Then now we wouldn't be, they would be for that, but because it's from the opposite way, they're against it. But, as someone who's, kind of thinks the idea of going back in time and stamping out the radicalization and neo-Nazism and hate early is an interesting idea, but not through terminating these people.
I think like the
that's just playing into their propaganda, like I said, playing into their sick mind of
the integration,
what the left is actually up to.
The integration and like corruption from within is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Right, you need to show these people what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah,
you need to like, it needs to be like.
Yeah, there's a great documentary which I fucking forget the name, and so I have to.
Are you talking about the black guy who used to go to the KKK meetings?
Accidental something.
Accidental. We're talking about
Daryl Davis. Accidental Courtesy. Daryl Davis, Race in America. Yeah, it's a great documentary that I highly recommend about a black jazz musician, blues musician, who basically through the last 40 plus years has basically just befriended KKK members, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and basically got them to change their ways just through friendship and talking to them and, hanging out with them. He's not an outright on the street activist, condemning. I mean, I'm sure he is, but you know what I mean? Like he just like talks to these people.
It's like a micro level, not a macro level. It's a one-to-one kind of conversation.
Yeah, to make a time travel movie like that, where Daryl Davis travels through time and tries to stamp out racism early, so that we're not at this point now with all this MAGA bullshit. Yeah, that's an interesting movie. Yeah, that's a movie I would get behind. Because the ideas of like. We're all, we always say on this show, like, we're 100% against censorship. Yeah. And, like, you kind of, there's all this hate.
When you make knowledge of any type, whether it be knowledge of, like, manifestos, when you say that has to be buried, there's an implication. It's coded in such a way that it says this is not for the public, this is esoteric. Yeah. Like literally hidden knowledge.
That makes people want to find it.
Exactly.
More.
It's dangerous for a reason.
And so when you get teenagers who are feeling edgy, they're like, let me see what the people, the man doesn't want me to read.
That's my point. Even though there is so much hate material around, for hundreds of years, but now especially, there's all these books being written and all this disgusting, white supremacist bullshit. I'm not saying all this stuff should be censored or burned or banned, because that's what they want. They want it to be edgy. They want teenagers to get angry.
They want to
This is where ISIS and stuff comes from.
Yeah,
you know?
no, exactly. It's that hidden knowledge.
Yeah. So, like, what we have to do is actually combat this with knowledge,
Dismantle
education.
it publicly.
Exactly.
Make it look like a humiliation.
And to make it a time travel movie about that, and going back and not, don't destroy Mein Kampf, because we can learn from Mein Kampf. We're learning now what Mein Kampf.
Well, I'm pretty sure that for Mein Kampf to legally be printed, it has to have all these corrections and footnotes.
Well, I know in Germany it's freely available because they don't want to. They want people to know. They want people to be like, we don't want this to happen again.
Yeah.
You know? But
and there's all kinds of footnotes about like, this is incorrect, this is crazy.
What's happening in America is they're going like, they're burying the racism, they're burying slavery, like they're going like, we don't want to talk about it, we're better now.
Well,
but that false narrative feeds the hatred, feeds the white supremacy.
One of the related topics is the conversation about the American Civil War in America. In schools in the South, they'll say it was about states' rights. But what they always leave out, and what conservatives to this day still argue against, is the notion that the Civil War was about slavery. The states' rights that
were about to have slaves. The right to have slaves.
They were fighting for states' rights, but that particular right was the right to have slaves.
Yes, that's where the right-wing argument always falls apart. Is like, well, it's about states' rights. It's like, what states' rights? State rights to own slaves.
For self-determination? Was it states' rights for tax? Like,
that's what this, instead of this movie just being like, there's another civil war going to happen, and then ending the movie, they should have been like, there's another civil war going to happen. Why? Because there are people who are, through the internet especially, preying on vulnerable people, young people who are spreading misinformation. How do we combat that? Not through violence, not through terminating past victims, but by like spreading information, I don't, like...
You dismantle ideas, you don't bury them. You take it apart. You publish a book, and like Mein Kampf. You present the material, and you say, here's what's incorrect.
And then, like, 100 years from now, we should be able to look back and be like, look, here's all this uncensored hate material, but we understand now that that's wrong.
Right.
Like, we understand Mein Kampf is wrong. It's like, if you ban it, then people are going to seek it out and be like, why was it banned, and people aren't going to learn from it. But you have to be able to go back and look at it and be like, we understand now because we know, like, we've been educated that this is wrong, but it's still freely available to us to find it.
That's right.
To a certain extent, of course. There's always limitations, but you know what I mean. One more thing, and then we'll move on. We talked about 12 Monkeys. We talked about a couple other time travel movies, I think. Looper, I guess, has similarities. But
sort of.
Yeah, I mean, Looper's a better movie and like has that more emotional core, and the question of like, that's actually a better movie as well. Like, where this movie could have taken, In the Shadow of the Moon could have taken more from Looper, where it's like at the end of Looper when he has to kind of kill himself to prevent Sid from and then Sid then doesn't become evil because his mother was never killed, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's like a sacrifice kind of thing going on, and like, this movie could have learned from that, where at one point I was like, what if Lockhart kills himself?
That's what I kept thinking.
Yeah, because I was like, he keeps trying to kill Ray or whatever her name is, and then he realizes like, oh, like she's actually doing something good, and then like kills himself so that he doesn't kill her.
If he knows he's a time traveler, and like, something,
but then he would have never sent her on the mission.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the thing. They need to fix the time travel, and they need to fix the fact that she was killed in the first when he was younger, because he wouldn't be able to travel back. But that's a more interesting movie again. More personal, more emotional, more nuanced. Yeah. Also, I think in the 3 years we've been doing, like, the old show Man vs. Movies and the new show Tuesday Review, I don't think I've ever mentioned the movie Predestination, which is one of my favorite movies and is one of the greatest time travel movies ever made, and was one of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen. You guys haven't seen it, right? I got it on Blu-ray. We'll have to watch it. It's an Australian-made film from Australian directors, but it's got Ethan Hawke, and like it's set in America, and it's like an American story.
Yep.
That's a fucking good movie, and I highly recommend it to anyone who likes sci-fi movies, crime movies, mysteries, time travel movies.
What's it about?
I don't want to spoil it,
Okay.
but basically it's kind of like this, where it's like time traveling assassin. It's got Looper vibes, you know. But that's a movie that deals with the time travel so well and has so many twists. Don't look up anything about it.
I won't. Yeah.
Don't read anything about it.
I'll
Don't-
forget
don't
about
look
it
up-
till you bring it
Yeah.
out. Bring it on Blu-ray.
Yeah. So, but like I'm talking to listeners as well. Like, don't look it up. Just watch the movie Predestination. It's incredible. But like, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But like watching this In the Shadow of the Moon, I was like, if they kind of took a little bit more from Looper's book, if they took a little bit more from 12 Monkeys, if they took a little bit more from Predestination, this would be really good. You know, it just needed more nuance.
More thought.
Yeah, more nuance into the time travel mechanics and more nuance into the emotional character interactions and developing that. And then with both of those, you got a great sci-fi movie. But as it is, it's just like a fun kind of chase crime thriller. And then that kind of doesn't deal with the sci-fi stuff well. And then the political message is never explored well enough, so it's kind of pointless. But yeah, Predestination, check that shit out. All right, moving on.
Moving on.
What's next? The Last of Us 2.
Looks pretty.
Yeah, so I think it's been over a year since there's been like any word or any footage or anything mentioned about The Last of Us sequel, and they finally dropped like a new gameplay demo, gameplay footage.
And it's pretty.
And
it's pretty.
Fucking incredible. But they've also announced that it's going to be released on February 21st, 2020, which is very soon.
Closer than I thought.
So I thought it was going to take at least another year. Like,
Oh man, so what are you gonna play?
but here's my but here's my problem is Death Stranding comes out
November.
Death Stranding, Cyberpunk.
Yeah, and then Cyberpunk comes out April. So
And
I'm
then
like,
Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out in March.
yeah, so I'm gonna have to finish Death Stranding in less than 2 months, then finish Last of Us 2 less than 2 months before Cyberpunk. And I'm just like, fuck you, Naughty Dog. Why do you have to make such good games? Like The Last of Us, like, couldn't you leave it to the end of 2020 or something? But because I don't know how
going anywhere.
I don't know how long Death Stranding's going to take me, but
A while.
I know Cyberpunk's going to take more than a year to complete. I assume, if The Witcher 3 is any comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, your one playthrough probably
play-
won't take you a year, but if you want to
play
experience
The
everything,
Witcher 3 properly all the way through
Yeah.
takes a long time, right?
yeah, hundreds of hours.
Yeah, so I'm
That's-
assuming Cyberpunk is similar.
The base game of Cyberpunk,
Yeah.
you could get away with maybe 50 hours,
Mm.
and then they release like expansion.
expansion.
They're making a
Yeah.
separate online game.
Oh god,
They're doing that with Last of Us Part 2 as well. That's another
Yeah.
detail. That's like no multiplayer with the game
Well,
on launch, which I like.
Yeah, like
I mean,
I don't need like
Make a
Last of Us
separate-
is Last of Us is not a multiplayer.
no, like make a separate online game. Don't tack it
Yeah.
on.
When you think of Last of Us, you don't think of multiplayer.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
But yeah, Last of Us 1 is like
It's up there. Man.
arguably one of the best games ever
Still
made.
haven't played it.
You have to play. See, that's another thing. Now I have to replay Last of Us 1 before Last of Us 2, but I have to also play Death Stranding, but they're both on PS4, so I can't like have them in the same console at the same time. I'm like, damn you. There's too many games and not enough time.
Too many PlayStation exclusives.
That's always been the way, though. Really.
Yeah, true. But I'm like, this point in time,
This
I'm
particular-
like, they're all
this
like layered
particular
on top
quarter,
of each
yeah.
other. Yeah, it's like, there's too
The
much.
next like 6 months.
Give us a
Oh,
break. Just give us a break.
Yeah. But yeah, like Last of Us,
Stop
the first one is so good. I have to replay it. It's such a good game. And Last of Us 2, everyone's been hyped for that since the first one came out. And we've finally seen some actual gameplay, and like the developers have actually come out and talked about it. And it looks really cool. It's got this kind of Red Dead Redemption 2 style interactive kind of. I don't think it's open world, but it's kind of like more of a interactive. Like you're on a horse and you're in the snow and you go out on missions.
And I don't think my PlayStation's going to handle it.
No way. I don't even. Yeah, but it looks really cool. And also, what's interesting is that The Last of Us has always been a kind of gritty, kind of not realistic, but kind of brutal, emotionally raw game. And this game seems to double down on that, where it's like when you kill someone, like everyone in the game is named. So when you kill an enemy, like his friends will get mad and like yell his name and like come after you. And like
Oh, man.
the AI is like more intelligent and like yeah, it looks really, really, and the game, like the first game, and because it's so story driven, the game will be about revenge and like the cycle of violence and how it affects people, and so I'm really excited. It looks
going to
really
be so
cool.
good.
Yeah, and like you said, it looks beautiful.
And Joel's back.
Joel's back, yeah. Which will be interesting because in the first game you play as Joel, and then there's that bit where you play as Sorry, Callum, you play as Ellie.
That's what I know.
And then this game you play as Ellie. I guess there will be a bit maybe where you play as Joel, or will he just be an NPC, or that would be interesting.
Doesn't matter.
No, but like I'll be fun to play
Yeah.
it, and something will happen, and then it'll cut, and you'll be playing as Joel all of a sudden, and be like, whoa, that's going to blow people's minds. Kind of like when the first game did it. But it'll be fun. It'd be interesting to see the dynamic between the two, because it's been a long time since I played the first one, but the game ended on a kind of sour note between them, if I remember correctly.
A little bit. A decision was made which Ellie did not agree with.
Yeah. And so, like, I hope this, I'm sure it will. I hope the second game, like, deals with that and doesn't just brush it off and like, oh, they're friends again. But I mean, she does say something like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't. You're not going to do this on your own." Like, so assumedly they haven't talked to each other in a while.
I think hopefully that my hope is that takes place in the early part of the game. And
Yeah,
the meat of the game will be their emotional reconnection, and because they, for a large part of the game, they had almost like a father-daughter kind of bond that had grew throughout the game.
Yeah.
And like I hope the game sort of deals with their reconnection.
I think
and reestablishing that bond.
Yeah, I think it definitely
Death
will.
Strand. Oh, sorry, wrong game.
Yeah.
Kojima's... See, maybe this is what Kojima meant about Strand. His game is going to influence everyone else. Also, The Irishman, there's another new trailer, second trailer out.
So much winning.
A lot more footage, a lot more
I think it's
Scorsese.
I think it looks-
Ray Romano. Oh, love that guy.
I think it's going to be really good. Look,
I'm still not on board with the de-aging.
Look, early reviews say it's Scorsese's masterpiece. Apparently, Joe Pesci steals the show.
Like, I'm watching the trailer, I'm like, I'm fucking hyped for Joe Pesci because he looks like he's doing some serious shit here. And, like, he hasn't made a movie in years, and he only came out of retirement, if you can call it that, for, like, specifically for this movie, because Scorsese's been trying to get it made for so long. And it's like, it's exciting to see him, but it's like, it looks like he's going for it, Like, De Niro's being De Niro.
this is Pesci's Oscar movie.
Yeah, Pesci's being like, I'm going to fucking act the shit out of this, and then that's it, I'm out.
Just when you thought he was out.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks good. I think the de-aging looks a bit better on the sort of, we'll say, the middle years.
The kind of through line of the trailer where he's talking to Ray Romano's character across the desk, and he's like lightly de-aged, he's like middle-aged.
Yeah, that looks good.
That looks not bad. But the bit where he's in, like, there's a quick shot of him in World War II that looks like a PlayStation game. And there's a couple other bits which, I don't know.
Look, I think I can overlook some of it if the movie itself is good.
We always say it's like if the
Why don't
movie
they
and
use
the characters are good.
I would love it, like just to use hardcore deep fake tech, just like stick like old De Niro face on.
Yeah, but you'd have to buy the rights to an older film.
Yeah, like Taxi Driver.
Yeah, like you'd have to buy the rights to Taxi Driver. De Niro would have to be like, if he's like okay with it, I guess, and get maybe pay. Would he have to get paid extra? I don't know how it works. I guess so. Then you'd have to. Yeah, then you'd have if you deep fake it onto him, but then you'd have to change it so that it's like it matches. Yeah, you have to
CG the lips. And
and it has to match the tone of the movie. Like, it can't just be like Taxi Driver. Like, I don't know how the technology.
But man,
works.
you should some of the deep fakes on YouTube.
Yeah, they're really. Did you see like the Al Pacino in Taxi Driver? That one was like they're pretty good now. But see, like I said to you, don't give him any ideas because this is the beginning. They did it with fucking Tarkin in Rogue One, and I fucking hated it. Where it's like bringing dead actors, like bringing fucking dead actors back to life, and like fucking hell, like see, like this is my like we'll see when The Irishman comes out, but it's like. I hope this isn't the standard for movies going forward, where they're just like, oh, we got a great actor who's a bit old now, but let's do a flashback, but he's like, oh, CGI face. Because, like, look, at this point, like, I'd rather the movie not be made than have that. So the Irishman's going to be very troubling to me if I'm watching the movie and being like, I want to love this because it's Scorsese's masterpiece, but also the whole movie is just weird, uncanny valley. And at a certain
lips.
and at a certain point, I would just be like, I don't want it to exist. So
I think I can overlook. I think I can overlook some of the bad CG if the rest of the movie's tight.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when the movie comes out. We'll probably do a whole 2 hours on that as well. One more thing. I think I mentioned last episode or the episode before that I've been replaying Alan Wake because Control got all my...
Yeah, we got G'd up.
Yeah. I finished Alan Wake, then I finished the 2 DLCs, and then I played American Nightmare. So I'm all Alan Waked out or Alan Waked up. And now I'm just...
Alan Woken.
I'm Alan Woke. And I'm glad I did it because it's so great, but also I'm kind of disappointed now because I'm like, the sequel, perhaps, like, whether it gets, like, it might not ever get made, but I'm like, at this point, it's like, I need a fucking sequel.
Well, look, Control's a semi...
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, it's kind of
Control's been successful, so
but
financially speaking...
That's what I want to talk about, is like Nathan was saying, the DLC image, like leaked promo image for the Control DLC.
There's one set in the oldest house, and there's one which we know nothing about, which has like Washington trees.
Yeah, so hopefully that is an actual Alan Wake. Yeah, so hopefully that. But also, like, Control seems to be doing well. I also heard that they got $15 million for the Epic exclusive, which, you know, we can have a whole discussion about whether you like that or not. But $15 million is nice for the studio to perhaps be able to make a new Alan Wake game. Because after, like, you know, because finishing American Nightmare, which is kind of canon and kind of not, I was kind of like, there's so much left unexplored at the end of the first Alan Wake. Like, at the end of Alan Wake, like the core game, Mr. Scratch is just introduced really quickly, and they're just like, don't worry about him. And then the first DLC, you kind of have to battle him, you know, kind of, he's like in a TV kind of thing. And then the second DLC, I don't think references him. And then American Nightmare, you have to like battle him properly, like he actually appears to you. But that game, whether that game's canon or whether, you know, I don't really know. So the sequel kind of has to, because there's this whole like Twin Peaks, what was his name? Mr. C? The evil coop? Doppelkoop?
Yeah, Mr. C.
Yeah, like there's this whole Mr. Scratch thing where the evil Alan Wake is actually walking around the real world while Alan is still stuck at the bottom of the lake in the dark place.
The sunken place.
So, yeah. So, like, there's this whole Mr. C thing going on with Mr. Scratch. And, like, I think the second game, like, American Nightmare kind of explores that, but that's not really a core game. It's not really a... It's not clear if it's canon. So a sequel, like, with, you know, this
Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, current gen graphics, it's like, you know, dealing with that whole Mr. Scratch doppelganger thing properly, that would be really interesting. But also, I think we were talking about, Nathan, last time about how Control is kind of like a semi-sequel to Alan Wake, and, you know, there's like so many similarities. And
it sort of references events in the in Alan Wake in greater detail, and it sheds new light on certain things.
But also, like, the hiss is kind of like sheds light. Click, click. But also, it you know, the hiss is kind of like the dark. The people taken over by the hiss, kind of like the Taken in the Alan Wake games. Like, there's a lot of similarities because it's set in the same universe. And I remember when the first Alan Wake came out, and people were like, "Oh, we want Alan Wake 2. We want Alan Wake 2." And there was all these rumors about what it was going to be about, and some people were going to be like, "It's not going to be Alan Wake 2. It's going to be Alice Wake, and it's going to be about the wife looking for Alan and having to go search into the thing." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then nothing happened, and, you know, that was the first game came out 10 years ago, and now we got Control. And I'm like, this might not be true, this is just fan theory, but maybe Jesse from Control is kind of like maybe what they were going to do with Alice in Alan Wake 2, because Jesse, there was an event in Jesse's hometown, and she was kind of imbued with some sort of power, and then she has to go into the bureau and just defeat the hiss. It's like Alice was kept under the lake in the dark place, and then was released into the real world. It was like, what if she's like still got a connection to that dark place, and now she's kind of like got a power, or she can see things. Like, I think they call it, she's been touched, you know. That would be cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. They've already done that with Jesse, but it's like, again, like I said, they could do a Control and Alan Wake crossover kind of thing. And how would Alice play into that? And, how would Alan play into that?
I'm down.
My mind's racing now. I got so many fucking questions and like so many theories, and I'm so hyped. And I really hope they do make an Alan Wake 2, because I
think it's coming.
I feel like Remedy's like,
well, look, the fact that
I feel like they want to make it.
fact,
and I feel like they have said they want to make it, and at the end of the Alan Wake games, it says Alan Wake will return or whatever, or the story will continue. Or something.
I think half the problem we haven't had one for so long is that Remedy didn't own the rights.
Yeah.
Now they have the rights back. Microsoft gave them the rights back.
Yeah.
So now
it's a coming.
As far as I know, they had this close relationship with Microsoft because Alan Wake and Quantum Break were Xbox exclusives, but now they
got the rights back to pretty much everything.
Back to themselves.
Yeah.
So they like Control was on PS4, PC, and
Xbox.
Was it on PC?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you say Epic Game Store?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It is on PC.
So now the thing is now they actually have the rights back to Alan Wake.
Now they're like quote unquote independent of
or they're not owned by
overlords. So it's like if they want to make Alan Wake 2, they'll make Alan Wake 2.
They can make whatever they want.
I feel like they want to make it.
And the fact their first game they make since they've got their independence back has been a game very linked to the Alan Wake world is very telling.
Yeah.
So they're not done with this universe.
Yeah, I feel like the Sam Lake and the writers and directors at Remedy, like I feel like they're not done yet. Like there's still unfinished business in the Alan Wake world. So,
we dipped a toe in with Control. We dipped a toe in.
But I want to go full in.
But we want to dive.
Because I'm so hyped. I was like, so good. That's it. You guys want to mention anything else?
I think we covered everything.
Yeah. Nathan, I think it's your turn to sign off.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for listening. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Tuesday Review AU. You can also follow James on Instagram at Channel Drifter, where he talks about all the movies we don't get to talk about on the show. You can find all of our previous episodes on your favourite podcasting app. If you like video games, check out Sunrise Arcade, where Alan, Jake and myself talk about video game news and reviews. You can also check out Matty J's show Car Talk, TORQUE, for all your automotive discussion. Please make sure to rate, review and subscribe to the Tuesday Review on iTunes. Adios, cousins.